Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Premier League Check-In podcast with myself, Benjamin Bloom, and the great Matt SB. Matt, we'd hoped to be talking about one of our EFL promoted alumni maybe being in a kind of relegation battle on the last day with a chance to get out. No, that all kind of died a death a couple of months ago, didn't it? So we're going to talk a little bit about Champions League, and we do have kind of two ex-EFL teams in Forest and Villa with a chance of qualifying. I mean, we'll talk about it. I don't see them both getting in, and we'll go into the whys and wherefores in a minute. But surely as a starter for 10, Matt, for teams in the EFL, to see Forest and Villa where they are going into final day, Villa obviously haven't been in there this year, is a good thing. Good morning, mate.
Good morning. Yes, this is where it's all going on the final day of the Premier League. It's that race for the Champions League. And what makes it so exciting, Ben, as you say, is the teams that are involved. It's not just your usual suspects. Of course, you've got Chelsea and Man City in there that we will talk about, of course. But Newcastle, of course, were Championship a few years ago now. We're probably going back about 8 years or so, and that was only for one season. But Villa, of course, in the Championship as recently as 6 years ago, and Forest, who came up 3 years ago. And Forest, I mean, this is incredible, Ben, because although Forest are a big club historically, of course, they didn't come up with parachute payments. And, you know, in today's day and age, we're just thinking if a team could just survive, that's incredible. But they've really kicked on now. I know we've spoken about the breaking of the financial rules to get over the line, but look at where they are now, Ben. If they beat Chelsea on the final day, they're guaranteed a top 6 finish and possibly a top 5 finish.
Yeah, I've probably changed my tune on that, by the way, since my team got promoted, and you see how tricky it is. And now we're going into season 4 with the 17. We can talk a bit about Leicester, actually, if we have time at the end, who are now expecting the it's not the charge that was going to be last season. It's a new charge, but, you know, we're kind of recycling charges with Leicester here. But I say good luck to Forest, and they're, you know, if you can't be Brentford or Brighton, and it's harder these days to, as you know, as a Coventry fan, to lose in the playoffs and keep building. You know, if you can't do that, I say do what Forest did. Go for it, gamble, and look where they are. And, you know, fair play. And I'm not a great fan of the rules in that regard. Right, Matt, shall we take it as a kind of given that? So we're recording on Wednesday. Manchester City won last night. They are now top of this mini league. They play Fulham. It would be very unlikely for Man City not to qualify. They would have to lose to Fulham, and then at least two of Newcastle failing to beat Everton, Villa failing to beat Manchester United, or Chelsea failing to beat Forest. Can we just tick off that Man City are probably going to draw or win at Fulham and qualify?
Yeah, that win over Bournemouth in midweek, Ben, absolutely huge, because it's meant that Forest can't catch City now because of the goal difference. So that's slightly narrowed Forest's passage if they're to get in, because they've got one less team to grab at. And for Man City, it means that a whole load of results have to go against them on the final day. It is possible because Chelsea beating Forest, I wouldn't say it's impossible. Villa beating Man United, not impossible. Newcastle beating Everton, not impossible. But we're talking about every single one of these results going against Man City as well as them losing. So, I mean, we'll see. I suppose we take it as it comes on the final day. If Man City concede the first goal, then things could get interesting. But it all hinges on everyone else having to win for them to get knocked out of the equation. So you're looking at it, Ben, 68 points with a good goal difference might be enough in the end. 69, definitely going to be enough.
And I'll throw in a very good manager and lots of good players into the bargain with Man City. Newcastle, I really do think the Goodison Park Everton thing is absolutely massive here, because it feels like Everton's final game of the season was last season, and we don't know whether Isak didn't play for Newcastle against Arsenal, so we don't know whether he's going to be, you know, ravaged and ready to go, and not the right word, but ready to ravage Newcastle playing Everton. So I find it hard to imagine that Everton, having played the last game at Goodison, are not going to be massively on the beach. I don't know. I've kind of got Newcastle. I think they could be 2 up quite quickly in this one. What do you feel? Do you feel any way similar?
That's got to be the objective. I was about to say, if you can go 2 goals up in the first half, that makes it look pretty much sealed, because it's about winning for Newcastle. Because a draw would leave the possibility for them to be caught, because they're only on 66. So yeah, they need to take control. It is in their hands. Everton as an opponent, yeah, I think Newcastle have got to be strong favourites, of course, with the home advantage. And as you say, Everton's big game was last week. I don't know. I mean, we saw Everton go away to Nottingham Forest a couple of weeks ago and get the win, when Forest certainly had a lot more to play for. So I suppose weird things can happen in a one-off game. But yeah, I agree with you. Newcastle, strong favourites to also get it done.
Right. So, I mean, let us know in the comments if that's a bit boring. But I'm going from the premise that kind of third and fourth, that's what's going to be happening there, and then we're talking Chelsea and Forest, who obviously play each other in an absolutely brilliant game, and then Villa in sixth. So we've got Chelsea on 66, Villa also on 66, Forest on 65. Apologies if there's any Chelsea fans who watch, but we are going to focus clearly on Villa and Forest with our EFL hats on, and Chelsea really come into the conversation with Forest anyway. And in some ways, Matt, it's good that you get a head-to-head on the last day, but in some ways it's kind of bad as well. It certainly helps Villa out knowing that one or both of those teams are definitely going to be dropping points. Let's talk about this Forest-Chelsea game then. So Forest got the win at West Ham at the weekend after a slippery run, and all of a sudden it's kind of on again, isn't it? And I suppose it's very clear that basically have just got to go and beat Chelsea at the City Ground. And I don't know, because I heard who made the point. I think it was Paul Merson or Jamie Redknapp on Sky said, well, if you look at this, who's got the hardest game out of anyone? Well, Chelsea have got to go away to Forest essentially and do something. And Chelsea aren't great away from home. Forest are good at home. And Forest as well, in that stadium, if they can take the lead, we know what Forest are like when they score first as well, don't we? You may as well just go home. You know, there were those two centre-backs and the manager in the dugout. So I'm trying to build a case. But we do this a lot, Matt, on our YouTube channels. It's hard when you go into final day. You look at it and you look at the team who's bottom in these mini-leagues and you say, oh, could happen. Often doesn't though, does it, on the final day? Talk to me about this mouth-watering matchup between Forest and Chelsea.
What I love about it, Ben, is they're both at the tail end of this race. If this was third versus fourth, we might get a bit more of a cagey game where one's happier with a draw. Yeah. They both have to win, surely, Ben. I mean, Chelsea, it's in Chelsea's hands, but it's in their hands if they win. If they draw, Villa could definitely shoot past them. So both teams have got to go for the win, and Forest have got to win. I mean, obviously, a draw doesn't do anything for Forest. Forest have got to win. And then Forest only need one favour from two other games. So, I mean, it might not seem massively likely. They've just got to make sure they get their job done. It'll guarantee top six, but what we really want is top five, because that is the Champions League football. Struggling to separate it, Ben, I must say, because Chelsea maybe have a bit more muscle memory in these games towards the end of the season, wrapping up a European place, but Forest have the home advantage, and Forest will be given a massive lift after that win over West Ham, which, like you say, they've been on a slippery run of form. They go there and play good stuff, and like you say, if they score first in this one, it's going to be a very difficult afternoon for Chelsea, because then they have to come from behind. The first goal feels really crucial, because, as we say, a draw isn't going to be enough for either of these.
There is that horrible chance for the Forest fans as well that they could win the game and still not qualify, which is slightly heartbreaking. And that is because, and we're recording on Wednesday, I don't know how to... So Aston Villa play Man United, but the relevant game is not that game. It's Man United versus Tottenham tonight. And neither way, for me, works very well for our Forest friends. And we know we've got lots of them, because... So whoever out of Man United and Spurs wins gets into the Champions League tonight, don't they? So if Man United were to win, they're in the Champions League. I'll say exactly the same thing that I said about Everton going to Newcastle. Absolute lame sitting duck, you know, easy opponent. But then also if they lose, won't they just be a massive depressed blob of a sitting duck as well? I think really the only jeopardy, Matt, is that the game is at Old Trafford, because if you got I would say exactly the same thing about Villa Park as I would say about the City Ground. If Villa are at home, you'd say, well, it doesn't really matter, the game on, in the Europa final. But first of all, before you get to Man United Villa, how do you think this game kind of affects what's going to happen at the weekend, this final between Man United and Spurs?
Yeah, I love that. I've literally done this in my previous video where I've spanned all 4 narratives from Wednesday's result. One is Man United lose and they want to try and end on a high and have a reaction. One is they lose and they go into this game with no confidence and they lose again. Obviously, they could win and have loads of positivity and get something against Villa, or they could win and be celebrating and get beaten quite easily. So there's all 4 narratives here. Obviously, Manchester United's full focus is on this game tonight against Tottenham Hotspur on the day of recording. I've predicted Tottenham to win that, actually. So I don't know what that means for the weekend game. But the interesting thing here is, Ben, if you're looking at it from a Forest perspective, for Aston Villa and Newcastle, it's not that they need either of them to lose. They just need either of them to not win. Yeah. So if Man United or Everton score first, Newcastle and Villa have to completely turn it around. A draw's not going to definitely be enough for them to get over the line. So I don't know. I mean, away from home, you'd have maybe preferred it a bit more for Villa if it was at Villa Park, with that raucous noise behind them. I still have them as favourites, of course, against Manchester United, Ben. So I don't know. Like I say, I think with Man City's win in midweek, it's just narrowed that passage for Nottingham Forest a little bit. But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating, isn't it? It's almost like that. The game on Wednesday is just a massive distraction, isn't it? Because if it wasn't there, and if it was just Villa playing Man United, even at Old Trafford, I think we're sat here saying, well, Villa are just better than Man United, aren't they? So they should be favourites to win the game. And the general rule of thumb, Matt, on final day, apart from there being lots of goals, is that if a team who's really got something on the line plays against a team that really doesn't have something on, they do tend to beat them, don't they? I think especially at Premier League level, Matt, those marginal gains and that just like, I'm not, accusing professional footballers of downing tools. It only takes 1% psychology at the level these boys are playing at, for it to kind of open up in that way.
On that though, I mean, the only thing I would say is, obviously, it doesn't happen often, but you get those rare exceptions where on the final day of the Championship, Luton went away to West Brom, and I think all of us thought Luton would go and get the result. And West Brom smashed them, and I do wonder, Ben, if that game was at Kenilworth Road, would Luton have got the win? Maybe with this being away from home for Villa, could Man United, if they score first? I don't know.
That's quite a good analogy, that, Matt, actually, because you West Brom and Man United, for those people who don't follow the Championship, is essentially a relaxed free team with some good attacking players who, maybe were underperforming, and they turned it on when absolutely nothing mattered, and that might be peak Man United. They lose on penalties in this big final for the Champions League, and then show up on the last day and against everybody's kind of expectations. Look, we try and be impartial, so may the best team win, but we'd obviously love to see Forest and Villa. I know Newcastle is another EFL alumni, but I think mine and Matt's work as YouTubers kind of came after that sort of Rafa Benitez season. And like you say, Matt, it was only one season and they absolutely flew straight back up to the Premier League. Whereas we had Villa. Did we get Villa for 3 whole seasons, didn't we?
Yeah. It was the last year of their parachute, wasn't it?
Well, and it was even... and this is the question I was going to ask you, actually. It was even worse than that because Dr. Tony was burning money like anything. And it felt like... I know NSWE came in and kind of righted the ship. But is there almost a bit of a sense that Villa maybe... I don't know why they don't get the flowers really, because I think often people look at big clubs, because of something that happened, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. And that's true. Clubs are big because of their history. I get that. But in this world where so much has changed in the Premier League, we were talking about this on Blue Monday. Bournemouth being in the Premier League for 5 years is of far much more relevance than Ipswich winning the UEFA Cup 40 years ago. What does that mean in today's reality? And in some ways, I think Villa maybe deserve a bit more credit. I think people just look at it and think, oh, well, they're Villa. That's kind of where they belong. But it's very similar to Forest in that, they kind of just squeaked survival and then have worked their way up. Do you know what I mean? Do you think Villa's gone a little bit under the radar, so to speak, because of the perceived club size?
Yeah, you might be right. I think everyone can hold clubs to a higher esteem and think, well, they should be doing that anyway. Leeds United, they should have won the league. That's not a great achievement or something like that. But you're right. I mean, you look at the first 2 seasons in the Championship for Villa, Ben, especially the first one. Was it Di Matteo? Really took them a while to get going. Yeah, Brucey. And then they had to win 10 in a row under Dean Smith, and they just got into the playoffs. They didn't do top 2, navigated the playoffs well, survived just about in that first season. I know some people might be quick to comment down here, Ben. What about that goal that crossed the line against Sheffield United?
Oh, God. There's always a what about, isn't there?
Yeah, I know. But you're right. Look at how they've acclimatised. Unai Emery deserves a lot of credit, in particular, Ben. He's been fantastic. And that's the other thing here, Ben. Like I said at the start of the video, Forest, I mean, it's brilliant to see them up there, but maybe we're now taking for granted that Villa and Newcastle are consistently up there because they've made the Champions League in previous seasons, and to keep doing that is incredible. While Villa also had a brilliant run in the Champions League this season, got as far as the quarters, really pushed PSG. So, you're right, they deserve their credit.
So, I mean, the chances of us getting both Villa and Forest in there are slim because that means either Newcastle or Man City need to stuff up, don't it? And we said at the top of this,
not Man City for Forest, Ben, because of the goal
difference. No, yeah, there you go.
It'd just be Everton getting a draw or something.
So is it not possible for them both to get in?
No,
it just depends on the Newcastle game, right?
Yeah. It's so complex, isn't it?
You're always better at these permutations than me as well. My brain can't cope with it. But do you see where I'm kind of going with it? And it's an awkward question because we've championed Forest all season and damning with faint praise. If they do finish 7th, that's still incredible and amazing. But to come so close, and you wonder, whether a Spurs or a Man United will be back in the top 6 or whatever next season, and things get disproportionately harder. But Forest are the most likely to miss out here, aren't they?
I think so, because it's definitely not in their hands. Like I say, they can guarantee a top 6 finish, but they can't guarantee a top 5 finish. I mean, they can get it, but it's not in their hands. So, like I say, I just felt that Man City's win against Bournemouth just narrowed the passage. Having 3 teams to aim at and then 2 feels like a big difference, doesn't it? Because Man City not winning away at Fulham, I don't know, it could be the case, but now they've beaten Bournemouth. Like I say, Forest can't catch them. So, I don't know. I mean, like I say, it only takes an early Man United goal or an early Everton goal to make things spicy, because then, like I say, Newcastle and Villa have to turn it around completely and win. But either way, I mean, like you say, credit to Nuno, credit to Marinakis, credit to everyone connected at Nottingham Forest, because a bit like Villa, they had to survive their first season. They also had to survive their second season, and they've really kicked on this season. And once again, maybe I'm taking it for granted now because they've been up there all season, but even 7th to get European football is just amazing.
Does the paradigm change a little bit for Forest now, where when you finish 7th and you have Murillo and Gibbs White or whoever, and there's PSR, is it going to be a summer of, do you accept now, if you're a Forest fan, whether Champions League or not, that someone's coming for one of those players with massive, massive money, and you might have to do the deal and, build more stars?
I think so. I think Forest have still got to do some trading, haven't they? Because they'll have attracted
the other centre back as well,
Milenkovic.
So, I know it's easy. This is always the case when Mick McCarthy was the Ipswich manager. The Ipswich centre backs just had the best numbers in the league because of the way they played, and there is a sense of that with Forest. But they're not Luke Chambers and Christophe Berra, are they? These two are no offence to Luke, he played for Forest as well, didn't he? But the two centre backs are brilliant, aren't they, for Forest?
I think we said it in the first couple of weeks of the season, and I think you made the analogy, just kicking and heading everything that comes into the box, and they're
Breeze
still,
blocks.
yeah, exactly. They're still doing it at this stage of the season. I think a lot of people know what to expect from Forest, but they still can't stop them. So Milenkovic has been so solid, 5 or 6 goals as well. He scored at West Ham last time, of course. Murillo has attracted a lot of attention, and Gibbs White in particular, because you maybe look at Man City losing De Bruyne, a couple of those top 3-4 clubs might be sniffing around Gibbs White, mightn't they? So, but you trust Forest to recruit well because they've shown that over the last couple of years. So, I think all's merry for Forest. I think it's inevitable they'll probably lose 1 or 2 of their top players, but I'm sure they'll bring in some good replacements.
And the great thing about Mr. Marinakis is if they don't recruit well, they'll recruit ambitiously. And if you throw enough at the wall, sometimes you get it right. And, fair play to him. I know we've kind of mocked him a little bit for his eccentricities over the years, but where are Forest at the moment? They're playing for the Champions League on the final day of the season, and that is an objective fact. Let us know your thoughts down there in the comments on final day Champions League race. Can Forest do it? We maybe get one of Forest and or Villa in there. Would be something pretty spectacular to have, say, Newcastle, Villa, we can't do it that way around. We said it already, didn't we? But it'd be pretty spectacular in terms of, multiple ex-EFL, over the last 8-9 years sort of presentation in the Champions League.